it's pretty eye-opening knowing how much more there is to teaching than teaching.
And I think like I have so much respect now for my mentor because I see everything that I've taken on as a teacher. And granted, I'm a first-year teacher, but she's still grading papers and planning lessons and dealing, you know, with student disciplinary actions, and to see all of that and to see all the meetings she sits through. But then at the same time, she still tries and like finds that 5 minutes to go over what she needs to with me, or let alone just being a mentor. Like that takes a lot that I take for granted sometimes.
I would rather receive that feedback from my mentor teacher at this point in the game than an administrator. I'm so much more comfortable with him saying, so what would you have done differently? Than hearing it from an administrator or a principal who's sitting in your classroom. So that's the nice part. We've reached that point in the game where I know that I trust my mentor teacher to tell me when I'm doing something well or wrong, but I'm better at receiving his feedback than someone else's. Well, what I started doing was asking the question in French. Qui a besoin d'un crayon? And when they started giving me just one word, I could have said, ils ont besoin d'un crayon? Maybe like to listen. It's just the one activity lends itself to names. Like they all lend themselves really well to words. So I could have adapted it if we thought about that longer ahead of time.
Maybe, and it is tough because you don't want to move into this artificial, you know, donnez-moi une phrase complète, s'il vous plaît. You know, like I get that, you know, we're trying to avoid moving into like, give me a full sentence answer. That's not always natural. She's dealing with classroom discipline issues that she's really, by now in December, she's really gotten on top of. She, you know, there were a lot of girls who, you know, 14, 15 years old, who really, you could just feel it. There was some sort of energy there, some sort of negative energy at first that they thought, you know, well, you know, is this young teacher, this young woman, is she for real? Is she really an authority figure? And it's a challenge for any new teacher.
I mean, I would say that it's great having teachers around that have a ton of experience, because that really helps us build and learn from like our mistakes, and they can really point out things that are happening. I think we're kind of at a disadvantage from being so close in age with our students, because a lot of our students don't really take us seriously, or at least I've noticed the times when like my mentor teacher is not in the classroom, I feel like that like object of authority is no longer present. So like my students are just like I'm not gonna do anything, like you're that student teacher, and like that's hard. And I think like that's something that like we're probably gonna keep going through for the next couple of years as brand new teachers. So it's hard, but it's something that we're constantly learning from, and it's gonna be something that we kind of have to keep pushing through, and it's something that I know I personally have been struggling with. So.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. Especially, I happen to look a lot like a student here, so often in the hallways, teachers and students will mistake me for a student. So that's a challenge. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have other people experiencing that same thing here to reassure you that like, yeah, it happened to me today too. I had a student hit on me. It was awkward.
Sharing like makeup tips to like make you look older and stuff.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I've been trying to do, because they definitely, it really helped them when they had the tray in front of them and they could do that with lithium, and then they could do it with another one. But yeah, it might be good to show the pattern.
Yeah, and so and then you say, well, this is why I said the shortcut is all you have to do is look at the column up here at the table, because this is what's going on. So
anytime you have a fresh pair of eyes, it's helpful. So when she observes me, when I'm teaching, she's in here. When she's teaching, I'm in here. So there are things that when you're teaching, you can't see. And having that extra pair of eyes to help you to know what's going on, or what students, you know, may mumble under their breath that you might not hear. So that's one way that we help each other.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that when we were learning all these teaching strategies, we all walked in with the mindset of, oh, our students are gonna, you know, go right along with this, and we discovered that that's not the case. Our students are far from, you know, the good students that we probably all were in high school, right?
To go off of that, I feel like what we learn at Pitt is like the theoretical. So like they're saying like, okay, well like implement this kind of teaching and like you'll get this result. And I feel like in class I'm always like, yeah, that's so good. Like that's awesome. Whoever thought of that was great. And then you get here and I'm like super pumped to like teach a certain way and it just fails. So I mean it's always a work in progress.
A, B, and C. So maybe it is a good idea to just keep them labeled like
Yeah.
that. So get them to understand these portions here.
Okay.
And then, so going over standard form, that's where I wanted to start.
What if we picked like 1, 2, 3 as a warm up instead of doing them all?
That's fine.
You can pick any 3, but I'm just like, if we pick 3 of these instead of doing the whole thing,
Yeah.
just to get them into standard form and then deciding what A, B, and
I
C
think
are.
one of the biggest positives about this is just, I think we're probably the only group that's in a very diverse like atmosphere. A lot of the other people in the program are in suburban schools, and suburban schools in the Pittsburgh area aren't necessarily as diverse as, say, Brashear is. So we're in a very diverse setting, and I think that's a big positive. But when we're trying to get jobs, this looks really good that, oh, you worked in the city compared to you were in the suburbs where they probably aren't as challenged as we are.
And I think to add on to that, the diversity gives you a lot of experience as a teacher that maybe people in, say, Upper St. Clair or another part of the city might not get. So I have experience teaching kids with IEPs, ESL kids, kids with very low reading levels, all kinds of different kids, and also kids that are, you know, just the same as anyone else. So I think you get a wider range of who you end up teaching, and when you go into an interview, you can say, listen, I have experience with all these different kinds of people. I think that makes me a better candidate than whoever else.
If you think about what the expectation is for teaching in an urban school, if you went to one stereotypical extreme, what you might expect is there's going to be a lot of violence, there's going to be a huge amount of disrespect. So there are these potential expectations that somebody coming into this environment might have. And I think, certainly at Brashear anyway, and absolutely when you're in my classes, the kind of gifted physics classes, then you don't necessarily see those behaviors showing up, not on a daily basis, and really hardly ever from my perspective. But he's going to be an interesting test case then. I mean, so a really bright kid who's missed this stuff, and I don't think the math has ever been a problem for him. Mm-hmm. So here we've got a kid who, let's see how far behind he actually is. So how much work have we actually done with the other kids as far as getting them able to decode physics problems and start to apply the math as an overlay.
I think it's really great that like we're all like at the same school, we kind of experience the same problems with our kids, but like we all are going through the same things at Pitt. So like we know that like there's a lot of workload at Pitt and there's a lot of workload that's happening at Brashear, and we can kind of like complain or like kind of like be happy for each other for different things, which is nice. And a lot of us know the same kids, so it's kind of nice to even single out and focus on a particular student for certain things.
Yeah, and I think along with what Nina's saying, except maybe the Pitt part, but it's like more like an actual first year of teaching or a year of teaching where you're in a school with other people and you see the same kids every day. Whereas if you were just in a school as the only student teacher there, it might not be as easy to talk to other teachers that have been there for years.